Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm in the capital in Abu Dhabi, standing in front of Western Motors, which are the official Jeep dealers here in Abu Dhabi. And they were kind enough to call me up and tell me that there's a car that they want to give me for a few days, and obviously I'm not going to say no to that. So drove down here this morning and got my hands on the new Grand Cherokee L Summit Reserve Edition. Let's see what it's like for a few days. Let's get out there. Hey, we're back. We are on our way back from Abu Dhabi, entering Dubai city limits. And I must explain, if the video is dark, it's just because I ended up spending the day in Abu Dhabi. Not that it takes that long to get from Abu Dhabi to Dubai. But that aside, I thought I would take advantage of this drive home to tell you a nostalgic story about my history with the Jeep brand. And so me and Jeep go back a long way. As far as back as my first car ever was a Jeep Cherokee Limited. And it was one that my father bought from me back when I was in university. And I got home from school and parked in my driveway was this shiny white Jeep Cherokee. And Dad ran down and hugged me and gave me the keys and is like, "It's your first car." And I was thrilled. Like, you know, who's not going to be happy after they get their driver's license to get their first car? So I have a lot of memories with that car, a lot of memories with this brand, and it's fun for me to see how far they've come since then. Like back then it was an 89 model, so how much tech are you going to expect in an 89 model? The car didn't even have anti-lock braking. So I'm not joking. Every time you drove that car and you went a bit faster than you should have, it tried to kill you. It would lose traction in the middle of the highway and start going sideways when you're doing around 100 kilometers an hour. And I'm actually very lucky to be alive because of that. That was very frightening. I had a few accidents in it. My sister had a few accidents in it. And I believe my mother had a few accidents in it as well. And the funny part is, we never repaired that car because you could never see the damage on it. It was just so robust and took a beating. And it was just old school American engineering. And I loved it. I loved it. It was just a car that was super reliable. It never gave us any trouble. And it wasn't the fastest thing on the road, but then again, I mean, the technology back then wasn't so advanced. I believe that was pulling 190 horsepower on a 4-speed transmission, whereas today I'm driving a car that's got an 8-speed transmission. And granted, it's a 290 horsepower. It's not the fastest car on the road, but you don't buy these cars for speed. You buy them for reliability, for practicality, for the cruising feel. You will go off-road in them, great. I'm not going to get into that. I have no interest in doing so myself, but they've really come a long way. The brand has kept up with the times. I'm now driving a car that has heads-up display in front of me telling me how fast I'm going. I've got a digital cluster in front of me telling me the maps and all of the things that you would need to know on a digital cluster. I've got this beautiful sat-nav as well here with reverse cameras, front cameras, night vision. It's very high-tech. It's very modern, and it's a nice place to be. So I'm going to spare you guys all of the details of this car. I'll get into that tomorrow, because right now I just feel like enjoying this chill drive home on this beautiful highway in the UAE and put on some music and just cruise the night away. So good night, and we'll talk tomorrow.
2 days later.
Good morning, everyone. We are in Dubai on day 3 of having the Grand Cherokee L Summit. And it looks like it's going to be another cloudy day in the UAE, but even better for a nice rainy drive back. Hopefully, if it rains on the way back, that'll be nice. But yeah, so we're just arriving at the car now, about to give back the Jeep to Western Motors, and I'll use the drive back to inform you of everything that I found about the car, the good, the bad, the ugly. So let's hop in the car and get out of here. Welcome to the journey. We just crossed into Abu Dhabi, passing the COVID screening station at the border between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And I thought I'd use the remainder of this drive to tell you a bit about the car and what it's been like to drive for the past few days from an experience point of view. And so firstly, I just want to address the fact that this is a Grand Cherokee L. Now, what does the L mean? The L represents the third row of seating. It's the fact that this car is built to accommodate 7 passengers comfortably, and I have no reason to doubt that it does. They've really focused on comfort and luxury with this car, so pretty much your 7 passengers are going to be having a good time driving around in this thing. The second thing that I want to address is the trim, the fact that this is called the Summit Reserve. And what that means is that this is Jeep's flagship, top of the line, all you can eat, all you can drink, buffet of tech and comfort that comes in this particular trim level. Starting on the other side of the spectrum, you have the Laredo, which has always been their entry level basic spec car. Then from there you go into the Altitude, the Limited. Above the Limited you have the Overland, and this is the Summit Reserve. Now all of them come with a 3.6 liter V6 engine that puts out around 290 horsepower. But the Overland and the Summit Reserve in addition are offered with a 5.7 liter V8 Hemi. And that would have been really cool to test out, hopefully on the next one. But for now, this V6 hums along quite smoothly, especially that this one and all of the other trim levels come with an 8-speed automatic transmission, which, looking back at when I had my Jeep, I only had 4 speed. So this 8-speed is just like a plethora of gears that I don't even need. But with that said, now that you know what the Grand Cherokee L represents and what the Summit Reserve means, I'm going to go into a few things that I picked up over the last few days, things I liked, things I didn't like. Obviously, the things I liked is all of the tech in the car. And again, to recap, it's your heads-up display, it's your digital dash with night vision. It's this rear view mirror that turns into a camera in case you have the car fully stocked up with whatever it is and you can't see out of the back. This becomes a camera. And you've got the Uconnect 5.0 with all of the bells and whistles and the cameras that allows you to see rows 2 and 3 behind you instead of taking your eyes off the road. The materials in this car are very high-end. You've got the walnut wood, Palmero leather, ambient lighting. They've really done everything they could to make this car as smooth and comfortable and luxurious as possible. And so it really does deserve the title of Summit Reserve. And that's definitely the one I would go for. I would probably try to get my hands on the V8 Hemi, not because you're going to race around in this car. I mean, this does get along for everyday use nicely, but being a bit of a petrol head, I like that bit of extra grunt. So this car has been great in that sense. The rear seats fold down electronically, the third row, and the second row folds down also electronically, but does not fold back up electronically. So unfortunately, it's only the third row that you can fold up and down from a push of the button in the trunk. But those have been pretty much the things I've enjoyed in this car. Not to forget the awesome Macintosh sound system. I almost let that one slip. You've got 19 speakers and 950 watts of symphony in this car, and that's a beautiful thing that Jeep have held on to from their earlier days. Back when I had my Jeep, they really did focus on audio quality. And so I'm glad that they brought that in, and they've even upped the game with the Macintosh brand. So if you're an audiophile and you like your tunes, you're going to enjoy that spec. Going back into things that are probably not the best about this car. So I already spoke about the audio system, and that's great. And when you've got a good tune coming on, you don't want to take your hands off the wheel. You generally get accustomed to a volume up, down, or track change button on the steering wheel. And I was sitting there for the life of me trying to figure out where it is, and I couldn't. And so later on, driving the car, I wanted to play around with the gear shift. And so as I was changing the gear up, I ended up feeling that the transmission wasn't changing gears up, but the volume was changing. So it's a bit annoying that they've put the volume control and the paddle shifters behind the steering wheel. Well, the paddle shifter should be behind the steering wheel, but the volume control is so close to it that it's quite annoying, and you really have to precisely look for the paddle shifts with your index fingers to get a good gear change. So something interesting just happened right now, and it's the first time I've ever experienced this in a car. I have Autopilot on, which means that the car steers for itself, it keeps me within the lanes, and it just means less input from me required on a drive like this. But I got to a patch of road where the lanes were different in the past, and so they painted over the old lanes, and now there's a whole set of new lanes painted in striped white. And it was quite interesting to see how the car responded to that, especially on a curve. There are lines coming and going, and that you could feel the car getting confused of which lanes do I follow, which lanes do I follow. So I thought that was interesting. Luckily I can manually override it as a driver, and so I could steer the car exactly where I needed it to be. But this is a very good example of when the car is on autopilot, why you should still keep your focus on the road. Don't wander off, because if situations like this come up, you need to be able to respond. So I just wanted to throw that in there, as I think it was an important little addition to the video. Okay, back to what we were talking about. So another thing which probably isn't the most thought out function in this car is the trunk lid. So with cars these days, you open the latch from near the license plate or wherever. Trunk lid opens up automatically. You put whatever you want in or take whatever you want out, and generally there's a button that you would press for the trunk lid to close. This car doesn't have that. I don't know why. So I sat there for a good few minutes trying to figure out how to close the trunk lid. And then I'm like, all right, let me just try, knowing cars and how technology works, I'm going to swipe my foot under the bumper. Let's see if that works. And it did. So it's cool that they have that feature, but it's not intuitive for people that maybe aren't into cars. Like if my mother was driving this car, there's no way she could figure that out. And so you would need to resort to using their remote control. You hit the trunk release button twice and it closes. I don't think that's the most user-friendly, but it is what it is. In addition is the buttons on the center console. I don't think they're ergonomically designed to appeal to the driver. You have the buttons at the top are very hard to read, and the buttons under the volume control are also difficult to read. If you're a tall person like I am, you get visibility cut off. So you're going to find yourself constantly lifting your head to read the top buttons or dropping your head to read the bottom buttons, and it's not the way that it should be. Another thing is this center dash. The design, I don't like that it's very inspired by Range Rover. I think they got a bit too inspired, but I'm not here to judge the design. There is a functionality issue which I'm not a fan of, which is the warning messages that the car tells you as you're driving along, whatever it needs to tell you, is really small compared to the amount of space that it has that it could display the message in. So if somebody has a bit poor vision, they're going to have a hard time reading that text, which I think it would have been better if it was a bit bigger. But that's pretty much pretty much the good and the bad of this car. As you can tell, they're not deal breakers. It's just little nuances that I thought you should know in the few days that I've had this car, just what I've been able to detect. But all in all, it's been a really nice car to drive. I have to say, I have enjoyed driving it. As a tech guy, I love all of this tech in the car. I don't know if I would enjoy not having it now that, especially that I got used to it. So definitely, if you're going to make the invest, try to go for a higher trim level if the budget permits. So that's been my experience with this car in the few days that I've had it. It's been fun. It's been comfortable. It's been high tech. It's been plush. It smells phenomenal. I love the smell of this leather. You can't get enough of it. And it's almost sad to be giving it back, even though I've only had the car for 3 days. But I look forward to seeing what the Jeep brand comes up with in the future. If they've come such a long way since my 1989 Jeep Cherokee Limited, I can't wait to see how far they're going to go in the future. So hopefully it won't be too long until I drive another one of these. And I want to thank you for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. You've gained some value behind what it's like to drive this around town. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a subscribe, a like, any comment that you have. I'll do my best to get back to you all. So thank you for watching, and until the next video, take care.